Greetings, family. Welcome back to another session with the host, Kyle Dixon, and my guest. Always a pleasure to have my own Professor David Kelly. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. Life is good, at least as good as it could possibly get.
What's the attitude of gratitude, right? So,
Exactly.
so family. We want to do another session. This is another episode. Definitely like, share, subscribe if you haven't already yet. Check out our previous episodes. We just did one on Black History about the importance of that, but it's not enough. But this one is in regard to what's been going on the past week, if not 2 weeks, here in American soil, on American land. Unfortunately, we've had another, what they call mass shooting down in the
Hmm.
Nashville area where I used to live. And they continue to happen. They're continuing to happen on campuses, in neighborhoods, at schools. So it is a problem. It's been a problem, and
Yes.
we as
Yes.
educators want to be able to talk about that. Professor
Hmm.
Kelly, myself, educators for
Hmm.
combined at least over 40 plus years as educators combined.
Hmm.
So Professor Kelly, let's go into it because I want to talk about it.
Yes.
We talked about this ad nauseum before, but this is a recent incident, unfortunately, with um, youth involved in school administration,
Hmm.
but also dealing with LGBTQ community, also access to mental health. So it's a lot of different variations, a lot of aspects to this thing where it's just not
Hmm.
one thing. It's like a multitude of things that are happening all at
Exactly.
one time, and then
Yeah.
lack thereof or access to.
Hmm.
So so I wanted to
Yes.
get your take on that and just be able to discuss.
Well, to be honest with you, this thing been going on since the inceptions of the country.
Yeah.
I mean, soon as the Roanoke, the Pilgrims, Plymouth Rock, as
Hmm.
soon as they came and landed on American soil, it has been that kind of environment where they have picked up arms and weapons, have bludgeoned people randomly out of nowhere for no just cause other than to for other reasons. Now we knew what they was trying to do. Their attitude in the beginning was all about taking land and resources,
Right.
and that was always been the case. But historically, if you go back, what I looked at in the last, I say between the 17 and 1800s, there have been a lot of school shootings. School shootings have not been, it is something that has been a norm within the United States. If you look at it, it goes back to as early as I say the 1700s, where they had Native Americans breaking into these European schools in American soil, these new colonizer settlers, they go in, break in their schools, and shoot them all up and bludgeon them to death.
Mm.
Out of nowhere. Why? Because it may be, I don't know, justifiable cause, because the research never told you why they broke into these schools, but they broke into more of these schools, these Europeans in there, shoot them up, and if they had guns, they would shoot them. If not, they had clubs. Imagine bludgeoning someone to death with a club,
Wow.
you know? And this is well documented history. Then you go back even further to the 1800s, you had kids coming to school with guns. It was a normal thing for a kid to come to school with a gun. They living out in, whatever they live at, but kids carried guns on a regular basis to school. And it
Mm.
was a policy that was implemented sometime to stop them from coming to school, because the attitude was, if they drop their weapon, it can go off and kill
Well,
somebody.
yeah.
But that was the reason why they wanted to take it out of the system. But beyond that, kids were shooting each other. Kids was also shooting their teachers and killing the principals for spanking them. So if the teacher
Wow.
spank you,
Wow.
so if the teacher spank you, you be like, yo, I'm not having that. And you take out your weapon, you put that teacher down. If not, some of the kids left the school, came back with an army of dudes to
Yeah.
take that teacher down.
Is okay, okay, okay. Let me interject right here, okay, because this is like this is something that I wasn't privy of information.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense, but I wasn't privy to it. So are these northeastern schools? Are these southern schools?
These are schools throughout the United States, North, East, South, New York City,
Mm,
Boston, Massachusetts, all of the continent of the United States has always been the norm for kids or young people to shoot up a place.
mm,
It goes back to the inceptions of the country. And then you find yourself looking at other countries. You don't have that in other countries, because in other countries, education wasn't an issue as it is in the United States or in Europe,
mhm.
something like that. But here it is. We predicated on education and law and justice. But ideally speaking, our law and justice system is slow in becoming. The crime have to happen before we make a law, or the issue must take place before we can go back and sit down as a council and make a law. But ideally speaking, the law is slow in coming, and people was acting accordingly. That's what you have to this day. People don't justify. We know we have laws on the book for capital punishments and things like that, right?
Right.
People will commit capital punishment crimes. They will do that, and they will commit suicide at the end of their activity. That's a normal activity, and it seems as if it's normal because guess what? It happens so often.
Often.
It happens so often, and then we try to put it on the news like, oh my gosh. No, if you go back 2, 3, 400 years, we've always been doing this. As the saying goes, if you don't have any formidable skills or anything to offer society, crime is your policy. And that's how the world has been established. The criminals who had nothing to offer society will pick up their guns and weapons and undo another country and take their resources. That's how the world was established. It was criminals who going on to come in to take what you got and then establish a government to prevent you from getting stronger to come and get what they got that they took from you. And you see that with Spain and England. You see that somewhere around the 15, 1600s. Actually, between the 14, 15, 1600s, it laid out very clearly. It said it like this. The Moors, who was in Spain for a long time, right? When you're talking about Spain, you're talking about all of Morocco going into Portuguese and all of the Canary Islands and all that other stuff, Cape Verde and all that other places.
Right.
So that's all that Morocco, that's all the Moor area. And guess what? The Moors never really had a hold of those Europeans that was living in Spain. They tried to, but for 700, 800 years that they was there, it was a constant fight and battle to get these people in line. In the meantime, these people was going all over the world selling goods. So they understood the idea of commerce and the idea of capitalism. And they understood that very well. So by the time when the Moors started to relax their control and Portuguese, became free of their existence. The reason why Portugal became free because they put up a fight, and they usually had access to the water because they're located on the water. So anytime you have a country gonna have water, they're always gonna have a much more powerful environment because they have more access to information and resources because they're located on the water. But ideally speaking, so they won their freedom, and then Spain came around and took their freedom. Cool. Now, once they got their freedom, what did they think they did? They picked up the same habits as the Moors. They started circulating the world and selling goods and services. So therefore, the Spanish Empire grew, in which we know to this day is all of South America, all of Central America, and a good part of the southern Northern American area. Like you look at Texas and California and places like that, as Florida, all along there. But yet it was Native Americans living throughout that area before they started picking up their guns in the 1400s and started going in and shooting. But you got to remember, according to the history, they states that between the 12 and 1300s, they were showing documented trade between Africa and the Native in the West. But there's documented proof of you actually being over there, selling goods and services. And you can see some of the statues and all the artifacts that let you know that you was living there. Also, not only was you selling goods to Native Americans, which was not necessarily Native Americans as we know it today.
Right.
That as well. The Native Americans that you see is not the Native Americans that was there 1,000 years ago. Yes. So we misconstrue what we may see as a new Native American.
Right.
You know what I'm trying to say? Yes. Like as the saying goes, you look at a country right now, let's say you look at give me a black country. Let's say you're looking at Trinidad or Montserrat or Barbados. Those are basically black countries, right?
Right.
They have not been black countries 400 years ago. You get what I'm trying to say? There was other people living there, and now they have populated population. Right. But anyway, getting back to it, so they was already there, doing things like commerce. But what it did is it did not destroy the ethos of the people that lived there. They did not change the brutality wasn't there, the murder wasn't there, the conquering of land and people and culture, even though evolution was taking place, but it was taking place at evolutionary rates. It wasn't taking place at man evolutionary rate. Right.
So the idealism of imperialism and conquering, right? Another instead of being
that came later on because what they seen the absence of a balance of power, and that's why they're coming. So Spain, they flourished after the Moors left. When the Moors left back in the 1400s, Spain flourished. And what it did is, how did it flourish? It took its boats and it went out to the west. And it started conquering those places like Puerto Rico and got gold and silver, all those places that speak Spanish to this day. Changed the people who was Native Americans and gave them Spanish surnames and Spanish languages. They made them so they culture was so pervasive that they thought to this day that they are Spanish. That's
Mm.
how bad it was, you know. So they don't even see the error of their ways. But ideally, they success was great. For that good 200 years, they was doing their thing. From 14 to maybe the 1600, they was doing their thing.
Mhm.
And guess what? The British, the English in the North, the Europeans in the North got jealous.
Right, right.
And they was like, yo, I can't have this. You can't be making money and growing your economy like this, because Spain was one of the most wealthiest countries in the world for a long time until the French and the English started picking up their weapons and saying, let's go get some of this money you got. So what they did is they took these boats and forced them, what we call pirates.
Right.
These pirates was literally sitting off the coast of North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia. They were sitting off there waiting. So when the boats come out of the southern tier, coming out of Cuba or Puerto Rico or places like that, as they come up through that, they have the circle that goes along the
Right.
ocean, the natural current.
Natural current, yeah, right. That's what
They intercept them, they intercept them somewhere around there, and they'll take their stuff. And to this day, we still looking in the ocean for water. I mean, for coins that came out of Spain. People still look, because what they did is not only did they take the boats, they took all of the bounty. They took all of the bounty from it, and then they took that to England. They did that so much that they bankrupt the Spanish crown. And to this day, Spain is one of the worst countries in Europe. Why? Because economically, because of what England had done to them. Now, who put these pirates up to do that? Who put them up to do that was the British Crown. In order for you to be a pirate on that water, you got to get a certification or approval from the Crown, which was the King of England. The King of England will give you some papers and allow you to be able to go out there and intercept ships from Spain, coming in from Spain or going into Portugal, something like that, right? And as a result of it, that's how England got its money. And it did it so much that they went into war. Eventually, the Spanish, government went to nothing. And what they did is, they not only did they do that, they also went to the countries and took over the countries itself. So they would have, let's say, like a place like Jamaica, for example, was basically a Spanish outpost for a long, long time. Then the English went in there and took all in, and then put their language and their culture in that country. So to this day, if you go to Jamaica or something like that, you may not even see remnants of Spanish existence other than a place called Spanish Town, which is a popular place in Jamaica. Other than that, but you wouldn't see it. Places, parts of Trinidad and all these other places, and it goes further out, even into South America, like Guyana or something like that. You will find these people speaking English because the English took over what was once the Spanish outpost, and they raped and robbed them to the point where now the British sterling to this day is one of the most powerful and stablest monies in the world. The sterling. And ideally speaking, it comes from that. If I don't have any resources to offer, let me get my guns and come and get you. Let me get my gun. And that's how conquest works to this day. And we still doing this to this day. For example, we say, we having a war with China. The war we have with China is this: how can I get more eyes on my products and buy my products? And we will resort to anything necessary to get more people to buy our products than to buy your products. And we would devalue our dollar to get you to process your products over here for a cheaper price than process it in the United States or anywhere else in the world. So if you're going to process it in America for $8, I will process that same thing for $1.25. Who are you going to go with? And I give you more security. I would not only give you the factories in the United States, I would also provide security and all kind of digital technology that you will need to make sure that you make the best chips, the best clothing, the best whatever it is you're coming out of the United States here with, technology, whatever it may be, and go back home and sell it at a higher rate. So you now can go out and sell something like whatever it may you want to be that's made in the United States. I mean, that's a United States product, but it's made in China. And you see a lot of that stuff, like our computer processing, our telephone, Apple products and things like that, So that's what it is. So the war goes on consistently and it's pervasive. It's not only just a physical war, but it becomes an economic war, a social war, and now we're having cultural wars. We don't want certain music or books to be read because you're
Right.
changing the minds of the
Right.
people who are.
Florida, Texas. Hello.
Yeah, because ideally speaking, every educated person is a potential threat.
Mm-hmm.
Because the information is right there in the book. It's how you put it together. And then if you have the proper wherewithal within your spirit to do so, you can actually motivate yourself to do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And God forbid we live in open, I mean, God forbid this is, the society is an open society like we live in the United States. People can do what the hell they want to do. So now we have to defend ourselves against the crazies. I have kids in the public schools. I mean, not in the school. And my kids, I think, I'm not so much concerned about the school that my children go to,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm concerned about the fact that people who send their kids to school, just like my other kids, is that something like that will happen.
Right.
And it keeps me up at night. You don't know who's going to flip the script. You don't know who. It could be a person who worked there for 25 years. Because my kids been going to this particular school for the last 20 some odd years.
Mm-hmm.
So I know the people who work there. They've been working there for many years, and I expect everybody to behave themselves accordingly. But you don't know. We don't know.
Right.
It's a toss up. But ideally speaking, we don't handle mental health issues neither correctly. Agree?
Yeah, that's a full agreement. I mean, let me chime in on this real quick because you mentioned something that's very important in regards to access to so-called information. What is the information? Whose information? What perspective? Does it have bias? Does it have inaccurate historical data attached to it? But like going back to what you're saying, they're restricting access to education because that is a threat. But then also the conversation that people are having are, well, open carry states, firearms, artillery. What's
Mm-hmm.
going on with that? Like, so you rather restrict books than restrict guns, and that
But
seems
we always been that way
mm-hmm.
since the Wild Wild West. If you look at the cowboy era, the cowboy era is taking place in the 1800s. And that's when we started to get a lot of these new Western states coming into play, like
Mm-hmm.
Wyoming and Texas and all them other places like
California,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, it was a
Arizona,
long time to settle that land.
yeah.
To be honest with you, we didn't really start governing that place until the railroad system got into that system.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
so once the railroad was and the people started
The series
coming.
talks about that. The one with Common, and I just can't think of it right now. What they talking about building? It was on AMC, I think it was
Mm-hmm,
the show. It was a series. Uh,
yeah.
I think it was like Hell on Wheels. I think it's called. I think it was Hell on Wheels. I think something like that.
Mm.
But
But
yeah.
ideally, if the government was in concert to build actually funded the railroad system
Mm-hmm.
because it needed to settle that land, and people was out there acting crazy. Just because you change the law doesn't mean it's going to change my behavior. Ideally speaking, those people are still vigilantes.
That's a key point right there that a lot of people don't realize. Just because you change the law doesn't mean people's behavior change. It has to be
Exactly. And you
something
see it.
you're.
And if you go to places like where we're from, if we're coming out of the South, it's a normal activity for people to carry guns. It's normal. And even though we have high levels of death associated with guns, but it's a normal, acceptable behavior for everyone to have a gun in their home. And if you violate my threshold, I have every right to shoot you. You know,
Yeah.
and it's understood. And then people, I mean, it's God. We look at places like Georgia, they still do home invasions with the fact that they know that you have a gun in your house.
Right.
And some of these people do get shot and killed
Mm-hmm.
justifiably, But ideally speaking, it's a normal thing to have a gun. And to be honest with you, I lean on that side to some degree. I think we do have that Second Amendment right is important. We do have a right to bear arms because the police can't be everywhere. The police can't police everything and everybody at all times. At some point, you got to self-protect. If you're in a farm and you're out there in the middle of nowhere and all you out there with goats and cows and someone's coming to get you, how are you going to defend yourself? Right. Are you going to lay down or are you going to take them down with you? That's usually what happens. We have to self-protect in some environments. If we live in the metropolitan area like New York City, I don't think so. We don't need to have a gun in New York City because guess what? If you miss and that bullet keep going, there's too many people around you where it's not going to hit somebody of value to you or to us,
Man, that's a real comment you just made right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
The density
so ideally speaking, we have way too many people within a square mile, or forget it, within a foot or two of you.
Yes.
That can cause some serious damage. So you don't need a gun in a city of 8 million plus people.
Right.
And ideally speaking, we have enough surveillance, which I think we need to invest more in. We have enough people around you to cause that reality to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We need to start coming together as a family, as a unit of people. We need to see ourselves as one people or universe, or people of the universe, and
Right.
stop seeing each other or that group and this group, because what it does is it allows crime to exist.
Right. You talked about this on the
Bad,
video.
yeah, it allows bad behavior to exist unless we start to band together and see each other as individuals or part of a family. Then we can start, curtailing crime. My understanding is that why isn't every street in the United States have video is being video recorded?
Mm.
It's public space, right?
Mm.
So public space needs to be video, right? Why isn't every street, every corner that is public to the public is not have a viable video camera on it that's working 24 hours, that have access to you and I, who
Mm-hmm.
can access that camera at any
Ah,
given time, at any time,
okay.
on some kind of public domain.
That's the catch. Like I was gonna say, I was gonna be play contrarian because I know a lot of people are like, "What? Well, we have cameras. We have cameras in certain areas, but they're policing people of color. They're monitoring our actions, our activity versus maybe our European counterparts or Caucasian counterparts in
Mm-hmm.
certain communities. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what But then you said right access. This was the part that I was like, oh, okay, because a lot of people,
No, we have see. This is where your civil liberties are coming into play.
right?
Your civil liberties meaning that so what you don't want nobody to record you when you in public, dude.
Mm-hmm.
You're not in your house. We're not video recording you once you go inside your domain.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're in your domain, you can do whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're on public access, like in the property that we have cameras in the hallways.
Mm-hmm.
Those cameras are not pointing to your door. It's pointing to the main common area.
Mm-hmm.
It's pointing to the main area. And why is it there? It's because in case something happens, we have recourse.
Mm-hmm.
And we need recourse. Don't you want recourse if something happens to your husband or wife or kids or something? I want that. They want that. They deserve that. So by having it in a public place, it allows for crime to deter itself. If someone knows that they're being recorded on the street, they know that they're not going to prep themselves 2 blocks away and think that they're not going to be, recorded. They're going to see you coming 2 blocks away. They're going to see what you're doing, where you came from, and where you're going. We need to know that. Could it be used for bad? Yes, it could be used for bad. But
Mm-hmm.
guess what?
Big brother.
Technology, the good thing about technology is there's a recourse button attached to it, which means that, yeah, I seen him took it, but guess what? He did take it and you did not do it.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? So, for example, someone take your credit card, right?
Right.
And they take your credit card, they charge something up in Istanbul, right?
Right.
You wasn't in Istanbul at 2 o'clock this afternoon, and they know that you was right here in New York City. So they'll say, all right, this guy committed a crime in Istanbul, and therefore we're gonna reward you the charges, and we're gonna return your payments, and then we're gonna go after this dude in Istanbul. You get what I'm trying to say? That's usually that's what technologies allow us to do. It could be your friend, and it can also be your foe.
Mm-hmm.
And what we want it to be is our friend. We should be able to see the error of us that's going on around us and correct some of the criminals. Because if a criminal know they're going to be recorded, guess what? It could prepare us for you.
Right. Right.
If I know you coming, then I can prepare myself for you, as opposed to you just getting blindsided, which most of us are.
Yeah.
We're being blindsided by the things that we don't see around us.
Mm-hmm.
And police have used this surveillance to catch the criminals, but the problem with the criminals, the criminals hide among decent people. How are you going to be living with your family selling drugs and guns? How could you operate in a family environment in a neighborhood where there's families and kids and mothers and fathers doing the right thing, paying mortgages and rents in these decent neighborhoods, but you rented an apartment to manufacture drugs and guns and sell stuff and that technically kill people?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But you're doing it in the midst of decent people. Why can't there be a place for criminals to operate? Because criminals can't trust criminals, right?
Right.
So ideally, they have to, and that's their lives are challenged. Yeah, a criminal would bring their problems right to our doorstep. And what defense do we have? So we have to self-protect us some way.
And let me chime in on this too, because it's interesting. Because and I'm speaking on the recent shooting in Nashville at the school, where now they're starting to release the video cams of her pulling into the parking lot of the school, her shooting into the window. I mean, shooting into the doors of the entry, one of the entry entrance doors, or the doors, with glass, shooting through, and you see her, in the hallways of the school, walking around, and they show, of course, they show the body cam footage of the officers meeting her and then putting her down, with a few shots and everything like that. It is interesting, like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, like, of course, most people, as I am, are thankful that they have the cameras around, but then I'm also thinking like, wow, this 10 years ago, we wouldn't even seen this. Like 10 years
Yes, we
ago.
did. We see that around. We see that with Columbine.
Okay,
We see
right.
that in this thing in Connecticut with these kids shooting up this elementary school in
Yes,
Connecticut.
yes.
We've seen this far too many times.
Right. Well, I mean, seeing
You
it
know?
as far as like in real time.
And ideally speaking, we have mass shootings every weekend in the hood or a hood anywhere.
Well, that's
Because if
another thing I
people
was
go to
going
a
to say.
party,
Defining mass shootings, because
yeah,
they said they have over, not to cut your wisdom, but they were saying like there's been over now 130 mass shootings this year, whereas versus 126 last year. But then they're still defining what is a mass shooting,
anytime you shoot more than one person in a public space or in a private space.
which would be like a massacre. It's almost like going back
So
into history.
you go to somebody's house and you shoot two people in the house. That's a mass killing.
Yeah.
You shoot two people in an apartment or some private domicile, or you go to a club or something like that. You shoot two or more people, that's considered a mass killing. But in essence, that's a capital punishment anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You intentionally shooting somebody. We don't know the cause for the reason as to why a person will pull a gun and do whatever they do.
Yeah.
And justifiably, we really don't need to know that after both parties are dead, right? Mm. But ideally speaking, this has been going on way too long. And then there has never been a remedy for this. It's been encouraged to do so when you look at other countries. So for example, if another country do something like what Israel have just done to Syria, right?
Okay.
And then they come around and do some old craziness, that's retaliation. Mm-hmm. Now you're gonna make a law, there's a law against retaliation. Who told you that there should be, who's gonna observe that law of retaliation? Because they say, oh, you can't retaliate. Where that ignorance come from? You cannot retaliate. We have that all the time. If you do anything else, this can be considered retaliatory. Okay. And then the first thing they do is retaliate. Wow. Right? So the same thing happens in the United States when they just now blew up that army, man, a couple of days ago, American. What did we do? Retaliate. Biden said, go drop a bomb or missile on that dude. And that has always been the case. Mm-hmm. So retaliation is good for you, but it's not good for this person. Retaliation is a part of the human condition. It's about self-protecting. And if we don't operate on that level, then we're going to sit here and be messing words with legal systems and terms that really doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And in essence, people have always had mental instability. Because to be honest with you, our society breeds it. We breed conditions for mental health.
Well, that's what I want to get into. Because I have talked about this ad nauseum, and many other platforms that talk about this. It breeds that type of behavior.
Mm-hmm. The 9-to-5 job is a mental health stress. And that's one of the reasons why we're pushing for the 4-day work week. Mm-hmm. But really, what you really need to do is to push for a 24-hour, 7 days a week, laissez-faire environment. People work when they're ready. People get things done when they're ready to get it done. And so long as you have a system set up for places who have people working on their natural flow, then you have what we call yin and yang balance. Mm-hmm. Like if you feel like working today, you work. If you feel not working today, you don't work. But there's the impetus that's attached to it, meaning if you don't get it done today, then this will happen. It shouldn't be negative. It's just seen that, and if you don't make it to the market today, therefore you won't receive your check on Thursday or Friday. But if you make it to the market tomorrow, then you receive it on Sunday or Monday. That's where it should be. It shouldn't be like, oh, if you're going to do it, you're going to get fired. Oh, if you don't want to get fired, now you're in and out looking for a job, trying to pay your bills. That in itself breeds mental instability. And then I'm going to start drinking. I'm going to start smoking. I'm going to start doing drugging. Then I'm going to find a different subset of population of people who co-sign my behavior. So now I'm with a low-brow population of people. I'm low-brow, and I'm mentally unstable. We are mentally unstable. Mm-hmm. And then we become a family or a group of people who are mentally unstable. And that's where social services comes into play. Wow. As opposed to curtailing the circumstances. And we never curtail circumstances. We exacerbate them because you know what? We're a society that's built on making money from you at any way. I make money on you. If you die, somebody can make a whole lot of money.
Somebody's making money. Right.
Yes. And the first thing we do is, how much is that insurance and policy for? Mm-hmm. If you know a person is not going to live long, I need the most money I can get on your insurance policy. Yeah. We bet on that.
Well,
and everybody better on insurance policies.
well, that's what I'm saying. Me and a good friend of mine, we just talked about that. How with the deaths that's going on not only in our urban neighborhoods, but all over America, but again, so I think I sent it to you. The TikTok, some of that will curtail, even though I think they will probably find another way, but some of that will curtail if some of these people who are in these very high violence areas will get insurance on these people, and they start having to pay out these policies. That would change very quickly as far as how they regulate who has access to guns and drugs and so-called police protection, so-called,
Mm-hmm.
like how that would play out, like how that would play out as far as the economics of the area, how that would play out as far as the security, like the cameras and everything in that area. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it
Yes.
it has that political leanings to it, right? But I agree with you on that. These type of setups now, but I want to go into, like you said, the work that laissez faire, because people could say, and I'm thinking as well, well, if we just work when we want to work, what gets done, or what can we, I guess, depend on if we have to go to the
It's
store?
basically work when you get done, but it's not necessarily predicated on you, but it's predicated on a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not your job as a part of 10 or 15 other people's job.
Okay.
So let's say your job is to basically sell cell phones,
Right.
right? You want to sell cell phones, right? You can sell cell phones 24 hours, 7 days a week, anywhere in the world. Your goal is to basically operate a call center. My job is on the call center. You know what? I'm sitting in the park today watching my kid do some craziness, or if not, I'm a little older person and I'm just sitting here with new glasses and I can see. So let me play with my phone and make some calls and do my business.
Right.
So that's a laissez-faire environment.
Yeah.
Let's say your activity is, you listen, we're going to be farming is going on. We got some harvesting going on, some potatoes or something. So you have your truck, you take it, you go to the stops, you pick up. It's like an Uber situation.
Mm.
It's like an Uber driver. You make money whenever you're ready to make money. You go pick up a stop, you drop it off, and based on the money you need to make is how much you're going to work. And then you can stop it, but you can deliver all day, any day, whatever you want. You can fly a plane, you can manufacture some goods and services. It could be anything. It
Mm-hmm.
could be anything, but we have the wherewithal to do it. The fact that we keep a knife to people's throat and force them to work at a certain time, it makes some people not built that way.
True.
Some people are not built to work a 9 to 5. It feels like slavery
Mm-hmm.
because if you're not at work, you're thinking about work. You ever had one of those jobs where you were so stressed out that you were sleeping and you're thinking about your job?
Turn. Wow. Luckily, no. But I know. Luckily, no, I have not. Like,
I did.
I
I
mean,
had many jobs like that.
I've gotten stressed out, but luckily after that, I think no, no, I had to go. I got to get up and
Yeah,
get out.
I had jobs where it was like, I mean, not only are you supervising people who need to be supervised differently,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to account for their activity, their productivity, and that's stress in itself. And now you're hiring, you're firing, and you got to be careful about firing because you can fire too much, and you don't have any manpower.
Right. Don't have
You know,
any
so we see that in our public school systems. You firing these teachers, but who's going to replace the teachers
places.
and the people? you know. So yeah, the person may have done something that was fired that caused them to get him or her to get fired. But ideally speaking, what's your recourse? Are you making the school day too early? I remember I used to be a K to 12 teacher. I used to get there at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I need to be in the school at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday?
I,
And then you want me to come in on Saturday to do some kind of educational enhancement program on a Saturday morning at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday.
mm-hmm.
Are you out of your mind? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, we're going to give you uh, a survivable wage, not a livable wage, but a survivable wage.
Way, yes.
What you mean by that? Oh, we'll give you $100 if you come in for 3 hours on Saturday, taxed at 25% or 30%, right? So that means you'll take $60 out of the $300 that I got.
Right.
So I made really $240. You get it? So ideally speaking, you're really not going to do anything, but that's what keeps people going because ideally speaking, you got to pay your bills,
Right.
and you got to do other things. You got kids, so that little carrot is going to force you to go crazy. And then 20 years, 30 years in the work, you realize that you're not worth anything else. You're tired. Retirement. What is retirement for most people? Retirement itself looked like depression because I know a lot of my colleagues are retiring right now. We're retiring now between now and the next 10 years, and it don't look good. Mentally, physically, emotionally, socially, we don't look good retiring in the next now in 10, 15 years. because we are not programmed for health. We're programmed for work.
Yes.
And we've been working for the last 30, 40 years doing this stuff. And most of us have killed any spirit that we had of independence, of freedom, or health, because of 9 to 5. Or even worse case of 4 to 12 or whatever it may be, whatever you're working. You know, it's a
That's a
tough
bar right
environment, but
there.
huh?
I know what you just said was a bar right there. We're not programmed.
Yeah.
We're not programmed for help. We're programmed for work. That's a bar.
Exactly. And historically, you look and you come into, you have to remember, how was these countries set up? You go to other places,
Yeah.
they don't work as hard as we work, number one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The economy is not as productive as we are,
Right. True.
but they don't work, but the life quality is much
Much
better,
better.
you know? And the reason why we appear to be much better, because guess what? We work longer,
Yep.
harder,
Mm-hmm.
and we put more time into it, right? And in the end, something got to get.
Right.
You may have more money and you may have a better looking home or property or business,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it may be,
Mm-hmm.
but how are you really doing?
Right.
That's where we fall off.
Exactly. Exactly. And then just to chime in real quick, we even fully identify with our work. That's how we identify. Who are you?
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
a construction worker. I am a teacher. I am. It's like, yes, we are those things, but that does not encompass all of who we are. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, we
Exactly.
even identify that way.
Yeah. And you have other countries, people don't identify that way. They
Right.
identify as a person who lives here, who's a
Mm-hmm.
part of this community, and so
Mm-hmm.
forth and so on. But you're right. In the United States, it's big. You parts of Europe do the same thing as well,
Yeah.
and in South America. But ideally speaking, that's a learned behavior, because most
Mm-hmm.
of your time is predicated on work and making money. But ideally, but on a real side of things, we need to readdress and reimagine everyday life. And a lot of us are not doing it. And it goes back to the crimes we see in public school systems. And a lot of these kids are broken off from society who are doing these things.
Mm.
These kids are young kids who are broken off from society, haven't been given any services or treatment, may have been, but it caused them to do X, Y, and Z. And
Mm-hmm.
to be honest with you, we don't know, because we never really sat down and had a conversation with, why did you shoot up the school?
Right.
I mean, when do we have that conversation in public where the public can actually do, why did you shoot up the school? you know?
Right.
Because most of them either commit suicide or they go to jail for life, one or the other.
Yeah.
Or the guy who who blew up the thing in Oklahoma and killed all those kids.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Is it Tim McVeigh?
Tim McVeigh, yeah. All we did was put him under but no one sat down there and had a real conversation with, oh, he was a skinhead, he was a white supremacist or something like that, right?
Right.
But ideally speaking, we would have sat down and said, listen, Mr. Tim McVeigh, what was your motivation behind that? Oh,
Right.
he was radicalized. That's the first thing we know. He's was
Yeah.
radicalized.
But
Radicalized is a big thing of saying, huh?
yeah, but like you said, radicalizing what? Like that's a
No,
very
he was
general.
radicalized based on, I mean, you get the low hanging fruit.
Right. That.
Low hanging fruit is whatever you can get. It's still a death is a death as far as they're concerned.
Yeah.
So the death, who's protecting kids in schools? you know, so
Mm-hmm.
they get the low hanging fruit. And ideally speaking, it sends the message, but most people who do that stuff really don't. They don't end up well. So as society, we have made less of a society. We're less off. We're not good people at that point, and all of us hurt. We're all hurt by, even if it's not us directly, we're indirectly damaged by that. The fact that you hear that stuff, even when you talk about stuff, we haven't talked about Tim McVeigh going on 30 years, right?
Right.
But the fact of hearing that brings back that trauma. Same situation happened in Atlanta. It was this dude back in the 80s who was killing up all these kids, this
Oh
black
yeah.
dude in Atlanta.
Yeah, man.
You
Yeah.
know,
The child
20
murder.
some odd black kids that would never make the news. We here in New York City, like,
I was gonna ask, yeah, like what was in New York City? What was that feeling like?
it appeared somewhere in the 80s, like 81, 82. We
Yeah, it was like
started
the late 70s, early 80s, right? Yeah, the Atlanta child murders. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was going on since the late 70s. This dude, right? And he was a regular, nerdy looking dude living in the hood. I don't know, a black dude.
Yeah. Wasn't he like a radio jock or something like that?
I don't know what he was, but it
Yeah.
was like foreign news to us up in the north. But we heard about it, but it lets you know that there's a lot of crazy people out there. And now, looking back 40 years later, you got it. Some things have changed in the last 40 years. It looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
Kids are not readily available to snatch on the street anymore. You can't, kids don't walk down the street Kids don't play outside by themselves. There's always someone
Mm,
supervising kids. So those options of stealing kids in public is not an option anymore. It's
mm,
hard to get if not somebody going to get you. Even if I see you steal a child, that may not be my child, but I feel the need to go run after you and get you. You know what
right.
I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Ideally speaking. So moving away from that, what else will you get the most vulnerable population in the public school system?
Mm,
You know, if you go into a supermarket, you see what happened in a supermarket. I mean, this is a common occurrence, and I don't know if we can govern ourselves out of this. I don't know if there's a government processing or legal entity we can take to get out of this. I think at this point right now, at this juncture we gotta it's a come to Jesus moment. You know
mm.
what I'm saying?
Wow.
There's literally a point where we all have to sit down and submit to the fact that we are all not what we think we are.
Mm,
We have to submit to the will of who we are as human beings and start to cover one another. If you're
mm.
unstable, it's my job to help you, because right now this divisiveness that we going on right now is not working for us. It's not.
Mm.
It has not benefited us in no way, shape, or form. In the last 300-400 years since our existence in the United States, we have war and factions and crime, and I mean, when do we ever stop fighting? When is the world never fighting?
I mean, that's a great question. Inquiring minds would like to know because I sure would like to know because I'm
You
like,
know?
this is what's it the quote of Jay-Z verse, this can't be life. You know what I'm saying? It's got to be more.
Yeah, it can't be.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
can't
just-
be. So I
yeah.
think at this point we have to all submit and realize and look at each other and start seeing each other as humans.
Mhm.
Everybody you're not going to love and everybody you're not going to like, but you ask yourself, why don't you like them?
Mm.
And the reason, if you can sit there and answer that question in all honesty, and you tell that person in all honesty why you don't like or enjoy their company, then that's where the healing will start. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you say, I don't like you because you stole my money. Cool. Did they really steal your money or were they motivated or promoted to steal your money?
Mm.
Because there's many reasons why people would do certain things to
Yes.
people, but they need to know why you did this or why you shot up my house or why did you break up my business or something like that. They need to know these things. And once you can have that period, then you can start to heal the wounds. As the saying goes, there's a bomb in Gilead.
Right. My goodness. My goodness. No, you know some important notes.
Huh?
But it takes a changing of paradigm and processes to get to really like understand people, to like be in tune and be open to like give people grace to say, okay, like I said, suicidal, or thrown in jail, and we just get to like, oh, that person was radicalized, or this person was going through mental issues, but never getting to the heart of how it led to that, like what environment created that for that person. Because again, everybody's a little different, but what in their environment, what in their experience and life experiences brought them to that point. You know,
Hmm.
it's
We can figure that out.
yeah, we
We can.
can.
That's the problem they have
We
right
can.
now in Patterson, New Jersey, right now.
Mm,
The problem they have in Patterson, New Jersey, is they're reinventing what policing should look like. New York City did a pretty good job at it.
yeah, what's going on in Patterson? Where they have I know
They
they
had
have
the
a high
same.
crime, but
They had the same thing with police brutality and insensitivity. That's what it
okay,
comes down to.
okay, yeah, because I know
You
that.
know,
Yeah, okay.
insensitivity and police brutality. You cannot. A police job is not to provide intervention for
Mm,
social services. They're a crime, fighting force.
of
So if
course,
a
yeah.
guy got a gun and he's shooting at you, the police comes in
Oh,
and
yes.
undo him. That's what they're not there for mental health.
No, no,
They're
that's
not there,
that's not their
even if the
training.
guy, huh?
That's not their training.
Exactly. So what they was doing is they took the guy down with a gun and he all he had was a knife, but he wasn't lunging. He was just
Okay, I
there.
heard about that. Yeah, okay.
They just got an open shot and they took it. That's what they're trained to do.
Yeah,
But what we have to do is reimagine what policing should look like. And I think in certain cities you have actually, so it's ironic because the southern cities are getting better at it than the northern cities. And the
yeah.
southern cities had histories of that,
Right. That's what I'm saying. Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, I think outside looking in, it's more space. You got a lot of tactical things happening with areas. You have more spread out areas. I'm
Mhm.
thinking that way. Like, and like you said, like people are more uh, in the South. Ideally speaking, people are more adept to find out like it's more community. It's more like I
Mhm.
know that person. I know this person over here, or I know this community over here. So it's a little more humane, even though some of it is not as humane because you still have prejudice and racism practices, but you have people who are a little more cordial toward other people. Like you have that a little more openness as far as conversing and
No, I
interacting.
think it was a change in policy.
Yeah,
I
that
think
too.
it's a change in policy. What
Yeah,
happens
definitely that too.
is most of us are moving back south,
Right, you have a lot of
and
black folks
saying,
in those political positions too.
if I'm looking at my ancestry in the last 100 years,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 120, 30 years, we have moved from the south to the north. And within the last, I say, 30, 40 years, we have been moving back south. A
Yeah,
large
yeah, just in
subset
the
of my
last 30 years
population
for sure.
has moved back south. And the reason why we're moving back south is primarily because of quality of life.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And, the north is usually places for immigrants. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
new to the country or you're new to America, 9 times out of 10, you're going to come to a big city like New York City, the five boroughs, LA,
Yeah.
something like that, or San Francisco, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe, Miami or something like that. But you're not going to go to the hinterlands, which is basically the small towns of America,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
So we move back, but at the same time, you move back with education and progression. So you're
Mm-hmm.
getting a large, educated, progressive population of people who are moving there. And that's what you see in Atlanta right now. You see a
Yeah.
large, educated, progressive population of people who are dispelling the idea of building a police precinct, a police training camp down there. You heard about that?
No, I didn't hear about
So
that.
they had a training camp that they're building down there. So their attitude is, we don't need this. We do not need an armed environment. We are progressive, educated people. If you put proper policies and procedures in place, people wouldn't behave themselves the way they do.
Okay. Yeah.
Because we create an environment of mentally unstable people. How
Mm-hmm.
do you create them? You create it when you let that young lady who decided to have a baby at 17 years old to go into a program and didn't provide her the services she needed. She got a GED. She had 5 kids by the time she was 21. And at the same time, she fell through the crack when it came to prostitution and drug
Mm-hmm.
selling. So she created an environment or a set of kids who was unstable, prone to violence, exposed to violence. So people who we know, according to our research, 80, 90% of the criminals who are created in this country come from parents who gave them unstable lifestyles or a single parent lifestyle. They didn't have a full human being to raise them. And that's what you see in most of the jails in the United States. Black, white, Hispanic, in all of the type. They are there because they had wayward parents. And we want to racialize it, but it have nothing to do with race. Have everything with social normality. How did you norm this kid? How did you educate this kid?
Right.
How did you put this kid in a system of desire or need? You didn't. You put him in the desire of survival,
Mm-hmm.
which means he became a criminal. You taught him how to steal because you
Yeah.
actually took him to the store and said, "Listen, I want you to steal this because they watching me, but they not watching the little boy. So the little boy gonna go in there and steal something from mommy."
Mm-hmm.
So what did you impress upon that little boy who was 7, 8, 9 years old? He don't know better. You
Right.
can't a 7, 8 year old. They go in, take the item, put
Right.
it in your coat,
That's it.
and then we meet up at outside and get my. I did it. We're gonna do it again.
Yeah.
No one's looking at the 7-year-old who's running around the store and mommy walking around here making a fool of herself while the kids are stealing, you know?
Right. Wow.
And that's most of it. And not even that. Mommy sell drugs in the house. Mommy sell alcohol in the house. Mommy made prostitute, gamble in the house, do card games. And you know how we do.
Mm-hmm.
Get crazy. And that's black, white. And the reason why they put black people on front center, because what happens is we are usually the cover of disgruntledness. But we only make up 16% of the population of us
Nation.
do that.
Right.
80, 90% of us are doing well.
Mm-hmm.
But that 16% of the black population who do, you know, nefarious activities or
Yeah.
perform nefarious are the cover sheet. Your rappers, oh my gosh. I mean, the rappers are, it's almost
Oh
embarrassing.
man, oh my God, we're gonna go into that one.
Are you serious?
Oh my goodness.
Your rappers are embarrassing. I mean, your entertainers are embarrassing. I mean, you
Mm-mm.
put, oh, Jay-Z is, I don't know how many billions of dollars he got.
Yeah, I think you're up to two now. Up
Are
to 2
you
billion.
serious? You there for what purpose? Oh, I did this through some business association. I hooked up with this company to do this company, and now I don't work this. All right. All you did is made friends and they invested in the product.
Mm-hmm.
And now the people who are going to buy the product is going to put money behind the company, and the company is going to be worth this amount of money. Thus, you're worth that much money. but it doesn't change who you are as a person and what you promote.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you came in, it's how we see you. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Don't ever ask Michael Jordan to be more than what he ever was. You're a basketball player, dude.
That's it.
I don't care
Right.
if you're 60 years
That's it. That's it.
old. Okay?
That's
I
it.
don't
I got
see
love for Mike, but that's it. That's it.
exactly. We
You got to
see you how
accept it.
you come in. But guess what? But on the flip side of that, that's our face.
Right.
They represent the 16%.
Right.
The rappers, the entertainers,
Okay.
the drug dealers, the baby mama drama, the killing in the hood. That's the 16%.
Mm-hmm.
The other 80 some odd percent is you and I who's going to work every day, trying to take care of family.
Right.
You even got some immigrant brothers coming in from Africa and the Caribbean who are doing the same thing.
Right.
You don't see too many African brothers coming in from Africa committing crimes like this.
No.
Or these baby mama drama crimes. They may do it, but it ain't going to be front page.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I'm trying to say?
Right.
So the idea is that why are we not promoting the 80%? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's the thing. I've had conversations with friends of mine, family members about the whole thing of there's a frustration there because they feel like the 16% is getting more of the publicity of people listening to them or having some affinity towards them, where they're like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm paying my bills. I'm being a solid citizen. I'm not getting into crime or nefarious activities. But it seems like they're the ones getting the praise or the attention versus me being the good person, or what they say, nice guy, which I don't use that term anymore. Nice guy, nice means ignorant, but
because
they feel like they're not getting
the media have never been friendly towards us.
Well, that's what, and that's what that's how I feel.
The media have never. Their attitude is if it don't sound like something that is disgruntled, or fuel firing like a racist issue or something like that, then it should not ever make the news. Because if it's healthy and productive, we don't want to know about that.
Right.
They ain't gonna sell no newspaper.
That's not selling no ads, no newspapers.
Exactly. So if I got a black person who committed a crime, let's say the black man, if that guy was a black girl, a guy who committed that crime, he's gonna stay on that channel a little bit longer than the European or the Asian or the Hispanic guy who committed that crime.
Mm-hmm.
They times like, oh yeah, but if we're going to be a black person on, not to say that black people don't commit, because we do commit mass shootings every single day in our neighborhood. It's called gang shooting.
Yeah,
we do it every day, every single day, outside of school, in the neighborhood. As soon as somebody is called gang shooting, we do it every day. Ideally speaking, but the fact that we do it, and we didn't do it on a large level, that man gonna be on that cover for a little longer. It's like OJ.
Yeah.
He was on that cover for like a year and a half.
Yeah. And they'll still pull him back up if they need to.
Yeah. If you do a crime, you're gonna be there for a little while. And that's the 16%. But you gotta remember, they're there to use you to make money. You're not there to be Nike is not going to be a profitable company unless they sell Jordans.
That's right.
No one is interested in buying New Balances. No one is interested in wearing Brooks or Asics. People want to wear.
They wear them. Trust me, they wear them, but not like
but
Jordans.
You ain't gonna go and wear a pair of Brooks to school. If your child go to school with a pair of Brooks or New Balance, they're gonna ask you, "Who's geriatric in your family?"
Right. Yeah, I will say
the runner.
Who's
the tree hugger?
I will say this: the New Balances have revamped their whole thing the past 10.
Yeah, but New Balance was selling to middle-aged European.
White guys. Yeah, I know this.
Middle-aged European men who want a walking shoe or a running shoe, and it was always boring looking from. I'm guilty. I had a couple of pair of New Balance.
Yeah. I mean, they come to shoes. They come to shoes.
No, they're not. They're not selling.
They're not for me. They wear. They come for walking shoes for me.
But Kanye West and Adidas is losing so much money. They can't recoup the money that they lost from the money that they got because his product is still good.
Yeah, they're still selling.
I mean, I'm not a fan.
Despite the controversy, or maybe her controversy, selling.
I'm not a fan of Kanye West, but the slides was good. Those slides that he had that I use in the gym, they're comfortable. You know what I'm talking about?
I know just because I see all the young folk and some of the young adults walking around with it. Yeah, I know.
It's the one with the ridges bottom. The one you wear. I wear them to the gym when I'm going to the sauna and stuff like that. But they're comfortable. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they are.
Now, I wouldn't have purchased them.
Yeah,
I got them as a gift, but I wouldn't have purchased the shoe. Yeah. But ideally speaking, but the products are good products. the sneakers are pretty good. And Adidas are now not making that kind of money because they can't promote a guy who spoke his mind, which I think is a crime in itself. Because you take away my First Amendment rights. He have a right to say what he want to say, and you have a right to still sell his product. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
Just because you said something doesn't mean you have to go to jail or die, right? So you have a right to be wrong and still live in the world that we live in. You know, and you could see that it's so unnatural because if you take the product off the shelf, look at the company. Adidas wasn't doing well against Nike when Nike had Jordan doing his thing. Once Nike started doing the Jordan sneaker,
Hey,
Adidas was always considered a second fiddle. And I know when I was in college, the team started going towards the Nike schools. Those was Nike schools. Most of the schools was Nike schools. Now they're Jumpman type schools, but they're still the same thing. Jumpman, Nike, same thing. Even Adidas, even the NBA is a Jumpman. What is it, Jumpman?
Jumpman. Yeah, Nike. Yeah, Nike.
You know?
Yeah.
No one is not rushing. So you do yourself a disservice by doing so, but yet you put us on the cover to make money. But you want to make real money? Ask Timberland to start putting black people on Timberland. Timberland makes so much money they're making the same boot. You know?
Different colors. You know? We buy it. I mean, trust me. I got Tim's.
You still wearing the yellow boots?
I mean, when I was younger, I bought, but now I'm like, I don't need, I don't need 10 boots, man. Like
they're the top sellers. They're the top sellers, even with Uptown. Yeah. Uptown was on the market for a while until we started wearing them.
Yeah.
To this day, people still wear Uptown.
Yes, all white.
No, they wear it because you wear it. And everybody wear Uptown.
Exactly.
I see grandma wear Uptown.
It. Yeah, the white girl, the white fashion model girl, they wear it.
But they was not fashionable until you started wearing it. Exactly. And that's to be honest with you. I mean, not to say that one is better than the other, but you've taken advantage of that underclass of population of people. You know, and it's a hip hop artists are the ones who made that stuff popular. It's when you get a hip hop artist get on stage and say, "My Adidas," then Adidas start making money.
Yep.
And then they wasn't going to try to give them no money. You remember that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they did a short promo.
Like, they made a song and they was giving cash.
They did a promo. They did a short promo backstage. I think they showed it on Just for Kicks documentary. For those of you all don't know, Just for Kicks came out like early 2000s. Check it out. But they did a short promo, like, give us $1 million. They did the My Adidas, like the short verse of it. And it's like, give us $1 million at the end of it. And they set up the meeting.
Same thing with alcohol companies. We make a song about alcohol. And they ain't give you no money.
Oh man, it's my liquor. You got OE. I remember the Bull commercials. I remember the Cobra commercials. I remember them. Like,
yeah, you made a whole song about alcohol and you get no money. You said then they started. All right, now we're gonna make a line of alcohol for you.
Yep, the St. Ives.
And now they make some money.
Yep, the St. Ives with the hip hop. I was in that area. I was in all that. So yeah.
But anyway, it goes back to that subset of people who they victimize. Yeah. And then if they do something wrong, they take them off the market. And that's a sad situation. It shouldn't be done that way. Mm-hmm. Ideally speaking, people should be able to do whatever they want to do. We don't live in a holistic society where that balance should be there, And another thing is, what can we do to promote the 80-something% of us?
Thank you. That's what, right.
What do we do about and I don't mean 80% of black, I'm talking about most Europeans as well. As yours, Asians and Hispanic, they're doing good things also. Mm-hmm. Better yet, let's look at what the Asians are doing. They're almost a 99% effective population of people who does well every single day all over the world, wherever they go. Why are we not championing Chinese people who are doing great things for the world that we live in? You need to champion. We don't champion Chinese people. There's Chinese people in America who make more money than they make if they were living in China.
Yes.
They're more successful here. Why not we champion that? Because when you champion the small man, you become the winner. That's what it comes down to. You can't, as we say, as another person shine, you should be happy.
Yeah.
You let that person shine. And you glorify their accomplishments because it tells me that you're a healthy individual. Mm-hmm. But if you do not allow that person to shine and you kind of put a hood over them, and the only thing you're going to let them shine about some negativity they're all about, some ghetto wear or some ghetto clothes or some ghetto music or something then you just as negative as they are. Mm. So the idea is you let the people who are doing well shine. And that's what I mean. We need a period, a come to Jesus period.
Yeah.
We got to sit down and be like, listen, we can no longer let you profitize on the demise of our society and create people who go out and have dysfunctions and commit crimes of, I think, crimes of attention.
Yeah.
Those crimes, they're actually asking for attention,
Yeah, they
and no
are.
one have given them the attention. And
Thank you.
therefore,
Thank
they're
you for
going to
saying
create
that.
these stuff.
Because
You
I
know?
was just telling somebody that recently. All this is really for attention, for significance, to be heard, to
Mm-hmm.
be seen, to be recognized, even if it's negative, even if it's violent. Is that's what it's about.
Yes. So we could, what we should do, I mean, moving forward, we have to loosen up those ends. We do have these loose ends, let's bring them back together again. Because we have more things in common than we have apart. And I noticed that when I was working in research.
Mm-hmm.
In research, everybody's there. Every culture, every race of people is in there from all walks of life. And you know what unites every last one of us? Our value for education. Our value for education, our value for progressiveness, and our value for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
That's what brought us all together. You may not speak my language, but you have a value for education.
Mm-hmm.
We could sit there for hours on end and talk about physics to a person who you may not know, or they don't look like you, they don't come from where you come from, but you're having a really good conversation about molecule movement
Right.
and how it moves and why it moves. And then we go back even further, have a deeper conversation about quantum physics
Mm-hmm.
and how quantum physics goes against what we see as nature. So there's gravitational force, but it doesn't conspire to gravitational forces. It doesn't conspire to the norms of negative and positive charges. You're having a deep, deep dive conversation with a person you don't know. And very few people in your circle would ever want to have this conversation on that level
Right.
because they may not find interest in it because they don't even know what the hell quantum means. They don't even know what the hell, how physics plays a role in chemistry. They are not going to take their deep dive. So with that, your conversation with them ended with what you doing tonight? I'm going to chill. I'm gonna watch this movie. I'm going to crash out. That's it. That's where your conversation ended with them.
Yeah.
But with the other people, you're dealing with the essence of who they are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So now my attitude is this: once you can emote to a person educationally, you got them. If you cannot go there with them educationally, you can't take that deep dive, then therefore you will never be in good concert with that individual. Even though you may not take that deep dive, but you also have a respect for the direction in which they're going, and you're willing to be led to that direction, then you're going to be in that relationship. It's like a female. Women are struggling with these dudes. The reason why women are struggling with these dudes is because some of these dudes don't want to be led. And some of these women don't want to be led. Either way. But you got to be willing to behave. Someone got to pull your hand in that direction. If you're either willing, or some of you are going to be able to walk together in that direction.
Right.
Because a relation predicated on education is a relationship that will never, ever die. It will never die. You will have some problems, but it will never die because guess what? You're in what we call a growth mode or growth mindset. You have an education is a constant growth mindset. You're always trying to find a better way to do something that was so traditional. You're trying to find an untraditional way of doing it. And you look at that same couple 20, 30 years later, you see it. A good example of that would be Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. Bill and Hillary, I read their book, a couple of their books that they wrote.
Okay.
They had their problems.
Oh, definitely.
They had their problems. They had a lot of social issues. Bill had problems. Hillary had problems. She's just as bad as he was. Trust me.
Definitely.
Don't let her being a female make other problems, right?
Yeah.
But the key is this: they were educated people, and they always was moving towards progress in education, and that's what kept them together. And I think Bill Clinton was one of the smartest persons. I think is one of the smartest persons in the world. Outside of some of your gifted academics, Bill Clinton is I would say, one of the socially apt individuals I have ever seen.
I've heard that about him. Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah, he's very. He's really.
If you read his book, you will see exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
He doesn't leave anyone sitting in a corner. Everybody will participate.
Yes, I've heard of that about him.
As opposed to some people, there's people in the corner. You got your yays and nays. In his situation, we bring you to the fold. And if you don't want to come, there's a reason as to why you could come or not come.
Yeah.
But the door's always open. And that's what kept that's what I think kept them together as a whole. And that's why a person, as you say in the Bible, say unequally yoked. That's what it comes down to. It's there for a reason. An unequally yoked is there for a legitimate reason. If you do not like or value what I'm doing, then you will eventually become a problem to me. That's what it comes down to. You either have to respect this or accept and move on. I love my wife, but I've been married for a lot of years. In the next 30 years or 25, 30 years, we've been married, right? If it don't go that way, I have to think about a divorce. You know what I'm saying? Because if life doesn't happen the way you want it to happen, you become a problem, and then I have to get rid of you, or you have to get rid of me, or vice versa. You have to continue to grow, and that's where things go. And you die, as I say, you die on different levels. You can die socially, emotionally, spiritually. You can die on many different levels. And the one that we care too much about is economics, is the one that's least available to you. That's important to
you. Yes.
Because most people least live control. Long without money. But we put most of it in money. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
But the one that really matters to you is the others, the social and the emotional. Those are the key. The mental well-being is the reason why these kids are out there committing these crimes. And we do not provide any services. And if we do, we make it billable. Talk therapy costs money.
Yeah.
Talk therapy and behavior modification, it costs even more money.
Yeah.
So if I want you to go into talk therapy, we give you 15 minutes, 30 minutes. What the hell are you going to learn about me in 15, 20 minutes? A good conversation is going to start minimum 3 hours. You started the conversation 3 hours. That's when we started.
Yeah.
And that's going to take a good lifetime to complete. That's when you started that conversation. Like I remember when I used to date, right? My whole objective is to go on a date with you. It had to be in the daytime. I have no opportunity to interact with you the way I really want to interact with you at night. Because at night, I'm tuning down.
Yeah.
And everything that's said, I'm blowing it over. Like, whatever. Do whatever, I'm just here. But in the daytime, that's when I'm looking at the little things that makes it what it is. It's important that you operate at your full self. And if you're dating people, you want to make sure that is the case, And I tell young people right now, they're struggling with dates and relationships. The problem is how are you meeting them and when are you meeting them? And under what circumstances? And are you discriminatory in regards to the things you should be discriminatory about? Everybody has the ability to look good and smell good.
Right.
But are they mentally well?
Right.
And do they have time periods where they're not going to be well? Because we can all be well within our 20s, 30s, and 40s. Will that person be well after 50, 60 years old? Do they have the propensity to be well after 50, 60 years old? Right. Will they have what we call a tail off that's going to be an abrupt, or it's going to be a chronic, it takes its time to move slowly, which we want it to be.
Right.
We don't want this kind of acute drop off that's going to happen, that's going to make you less of an individual and a burden to me as an individual. So you need to know these are real questions. And a lot of us are not trained in asking these questions. A lot of therapists or teachers who may have problems or come in contact with people who may have problems are not so much concerned about learning about these people. Like I have a class I got to teach today at 5:30. My goal is to talk to you, and I'm talking to you as if you're a whole person, but I don't know if you're whole. I don't know if you do. Technically, do I care? Yes, while you're there.
Yes.
But after you leave, I don't really care because you're not under my auspices. If you present a question, like a young lady presented a question this morning, right? And she took us in a 10, 15-minute direction that we shouldn't have been going into. But the fact that I care allow you to happen because that 10 to 15 minutes could have made a difference in your life.
Right.
And hopefully it did. It answered a lot of the questions, even though it wasn't on the curriculum. It answers a lot of questions that you need to have answered in your life. And it can help you get from point A to point B. Yeah. That's why you do that. And a lot of us don't have that opportunity. And we're not well. And I hate to say it, a lot of people who are in response with children and families and relationships are not healthy people. And they need not be in relationships. They need not be in uncomfortable people. Sometimes you got to call it what it is. This person is dysfunctional to you. Oh, but I don't want to leave this person because I don't want to take care of my kids. I got child support. I got this. I think you need to leave. You know what I'm saying? Call it what it is. Pack up. You can reinvent yourself, as the saying goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was a great talk, buddy.
Yeah, and community plays a part in that.
Talk.
It's a great talk. It is. And we're going to wrap it up, family, because this is a great topic. Your community plays a lot of that participation in family dynamics, relationships, friendships, all these different ways. And what we talk about, Professor Kelly is presenting to you all. We gave a historical, we went all the way back to the 1200s, right? All the way back to the Portuguese, the Moors, the British crown, which is important because I'm glad you went there early on. And please go back and rewind if you need to, family. Go back and rewind and listen over again because the history lesson is important because what he's saying is it's a foundational ideology and practices that has set up what is going on right now in 2023. So it's not just to say, oh, people are crazy, they get guns and they shoot people. It's more subversive than that. It's more foundational in the ideals of this country and other countries than what they're giving you on the news. It goes deeper, and once you start to really go through all the layers, you see how it's perpetuated even now in 2023, thousands of years later. It's really amazing, but it's also can be maybe scary too, and I understand that as well. There's definitely interesting times we're in, but like you're saying, that educational piece, the educational piece and being alert and aware of things, you first, being aware of you first. And then also how does that transpire outside of yourself in regards to your mate, your family, your children, your workplace, just the whole community and the city that you live in, etc. So I appreciate you, Professor Kelly, on that. Any ending notes before we end this conversation?
I would think, I would like to just say if people know someone or they're in contact with people who are mentally unstable or appear to be mentally unstable, that you provide what we call individual services and not be so quick to call 911. If you know a person, your significant other who's mentally unstable, and they're presenting issues with we see over the course of a lifetime that you notice that they have what we call a decline in their faculties or functions, and you notice that to be the case, that you actually slowly bring them into the fold, because the sad thing about it, and this is the bad part about it, people who are mentally ill are usually around people who are also mentally ill. It's almost as if it's like by default we will come together type of environment, and so if you know someone who has these problems, to bring them into the fold and to have them go in for services. But services, I hate to say, the service that we receive right now is not the beneficial services because we have more failures than we have success. And did we do a recording of these things? Yes, we did record these. If we look at some of the researchers, say people who are diagnosed with a mental health issue, 9 times out of 10, they're going to live with that for the rest of their life. Some of them will become stable. At least the greater majority will become temporarily stable, but they will fall back into that. And the life expectancy or the quality of life will be diminished over a period of time. And their life will not be happy over a period of time. So ideally speaking, it's more we can do to make our society more sensible to things like this. But at the same time, what are we doing to prevent this from happening? What are we doing to allow these people to peacefully exist because they're mentally fragile or socially, emotionally fragile, where they can exist in a fragile society and not be ran over by people who are aggressive, who feel very little for whatever it is they're going through. That's what I would like people to go away with, that idea. And because on the other end, we see what can happen on the other end. It not only puts the people who are innocent at risk, even the professionals, the police officers and the ambulance, and the fire, they are put at risk too. They are put at risk. And that, mind you, those police officers fired, they could be our family, and we want our family to come home after they do their job. Why should they not come home? So what we can look at it on a long term is us being soldiers of individuals. I mean, if a person has a problem, let's see how we can walk them through that system and be supportive of that system. And I know that that it can be burdensome if it's just one person, but what you do is you create a team of individuals that can help that individual. So instead of you dealing with that person individually, maybe you want to bring 4, 5, or 6 other people into that circle of that friendship, so that person, so we can share the responsibility and the burden, as opposed to us being one person, you dealing with this person with schizophrenia, and it becomes a burden to you. And human beings, we do have limits. We flip out, and we need respite every now and then. So you seek your respite in the environment of people who can help that person come to their fruition. That's pretty much it.
Indeed.
Thank you, people. I appreciate this conversation.
Yeah, definitely healthy, extensive conversation that definitely needs to be had more so. Thank you, family, for tuning in to us talk about these. Again, if anything we said triggered or alarmed you, we apologize for that. That was not the intention. The intention is just to share our opinion and our perspective on these issues. Again, these are issues that are our opinion. And again, we're not saying these are actual fact. Always do your own research. Always look up things for yourself. You may have misquoted something or misstated something. But again, wealthy conversation for your advancement, for your health and wellness, and just overall exposure to again ideas and historical things and facts and data that always needs to be addressed in these particular situations with our communities, whether they be Black communities, white communities. You know, of course, we're more prone to people of color communities, but again, one thing affects us all in this country for sure. So definitely keep that in mind. Again, like, share, subscribe for my channel. Like, share, subscribe to Professor Kelly. Reach out, put your comments below. If you agree, put your comments below. If you disagree and have something to say, although it's respectful, put your comments below so we can talk about it and chop it up. So much respect to everybody. Peace and blessings. And we will see you next time. All right. Be well.
Enjoy.
Enjoy.
Have a good one. Enjoy.